All right, let's take a ride through Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan's old tough guy, the neighborhood with a name that sounds like a warning and a promise all at once. You hear Hell's Kitchen, and you don't think of quiet tree-lined streets or polished brownstones. No, you think of steam rising from subway grates, fire escapes, twisting up old brick buildings, the smell of hot pretzels, and exhaust mixing in the air. And even though this place has changed, because everything in New York changes, there's still something about Hell's Kitchen that refuses to smooth out completely. Something that still bites back just a little. This neighborhood started rough, real rough. We're talking the 1800s, when it was mostly tenements packed tight with immigrants, Irish, mostly, but later Germans, Italians, and Puerto Ricans. The kind of place where you lived stacked on top of each other, where the docks were, your livelihood, and survival meant being a little tougher than the next guy. And tough? Oh, Hell's Kitchen had that in spades. The Gophers, the Hudson Dusters, the Westies, gangs ran these streets like they owned them, and honestly, they kind of did. Some of these alleys, they saw more brawls and back alley deals than most people see in a lifetime. And you can't talk about Hell's Kitchen without talking about Prohibition. This place was a bootlegger's paradise. If you knew the right knock, the right name, you could find a stiff drink and a little trouble behind just about any door. The cops, some turned a blind eye, some played along. That's just how it was. Even after Prohibition ended, crime didn't exactly take a break. The Westies ran things well into the 70s and 80s, Irish mobsters who didn't mess around. This wasn't the slick Godfather-type operation either. This was old school, knock you out with a brick kind of business. But like I said, New York changes, and by the 90s, the Westies were history. Just another chapter in Hell's Kitchen's long, rough story. But let me tell you something. Hell's Kitchen has always had more than just muscle. This place, it's got heart, always has. Even when it was rough, there was an energy here, an electricity. Broadway's just a stone's throw away, and actors, writers, and musicians have been flocking here for decades. You think about all the dreamers waiting tables by day, rehearsing lines by night. A lot of them lived right here. The apartments weren't fancy, but they were close enough to the theaters that you could wake up late and still make your audition. Some of the biggest names in show business, they walked these streets before they were famous. You could be sitting next to a nobody at a diner, and next year they're headlining a show. That's Hell's Kitchen for you. And now it's a different kind of tough. Rent's high. Too high. A lot of the old bars, the mom and pop shops, they've been squeezed out, replaced by sleek new restaurants and high-rise apartments with doormen. You can still find a cheap drink if you know where to look, but you gotta dig a little deeper. The people, they're different too. Still actors and artists, but also young professionals, tech guys, Wall Street types who want to be close to Midtown but don't want the tourist chaos of Times Square. But you know what? Even with all the change, all the gentrification, you can still feel it. The bones of the old Hell's Kitchen are still here. Look at these buildings. See those old tenements with the black iron fire escapes? That's old New York right there. You walk into a bar that's been here long enough, and you might hear an old-timer telling stories about when this place was actually dangerous. You listen long enough, and you start to hear the ghosts whispering, the dock workers, the gangsters, the Broadway hopefuls who never got their big break. And that's what makes Hell's Kitchen different from all the other gentrified neighborhoods. Williamsburg, Soho, even the East Village, they all changed too. But something about Hell's Kitchen refuses to be tamed completely. There's still a little fight left in these streets, a little edge, and honestly, that's what makes it great. It's still a place for the hustlers, the dreamers, the ones who know that in New York, you gotta carve out your own space, because no one's gonna hand it to you. So yeah, Hell's Kitchen ain't the same place it was 100 years ago, or 50, or even 20. But you roll down your window, breathe in that mix of ambition and history, and you'll realize this neighborhood still belongs to the ones who refuse to give up. And that's as New York as it gets.